The crystalline walls of the Zapperian Academy's examination hall gleamed beneath three artificial suns, each set into the high ceiling to simulate daybreak. Beams of refracted light scattered across the chamber, painting every nervous face in rainbows. 12 species sat together in uneasy silence, scaled, feathered, furred, and smooth-skinned, each destined for the galactic diplomatic corps if they survived today's trial. At the far end of the hall, a mantis-like figure with sharp, glassy mandibles clicked them together in irritation. Professor Vexhi's compound eyes swept across the rows of seats with unsettling precision. "Students," he began, his voice dry and metallic, "today's examination determines your placement among the corps. As you know, there will be no tolerance for dishonesty. We have measures." A murmur rippled through the students. They all knew what he meant. Rumors had spread for weeks. Some whispered it was a machine. Others insisted it was worse, something alive. Fisa, a slender, gray-skinned student from the Iriani collective, adjusted the translator nestled in her ear. Her 4 delicate fingers drummed against the edge of her desk. She glanced at the empty chair beside her. James wasn't there, again. The human was late more often than he was on time, but today his absence wasn't funny. The core exams weren't like coursework. Failure meant exile from the academy, a closed path, a wasted future. Fisa swallowed, mandibles flexing nervously. She wasn't fond of James's sloppy uniform or his habit of sipping that foul-smelling earth drink during lectures, but she respected him. Humans were strange, yes, fragile-looking, constantly bruised, always improvising instead of following procedure, but there was something steady about them. And something dangerous. The professor raised one claw. At his signal, the massive double doors at the back of the hall groaned open. The sound echoed like thunder. Students craned their necks as a team of handlers entered, guiding something vast into the room. The Mindreader beast. It was the size of a shuttle, covered in iridescent scales that shifted colors with every flicker of thought it tasted. 6 massive eyes swiveled independently, each glowing faintly with an intelligence older than empires. From its underside, dozens of tentacle-like feelers trailed, sampling the psychic air. A collective shudder passed through the room. Fisa stiffened. She had studied the Cathurian breed in xenobiology. They weren't violent. They didn't need to be. They could unweave lies from the fabric of thought itself, peeling away every hidden layer until nothing remained but raw, unfiltered truth. Even telepaths feared them. Professor Vexhi's mandibles clacked with satisfaction. This specimen ensures fairness. No deception, no collaboration, no telepathic cheating. Any thought of dishonesty will be noticed. The handlers steered the beast to the center of the hall. Its eyes glowed brighter, ready to begin the psychic sweep. And then, without warning, it stopped. Its glow flickered. Its scales, once shimmering greens and golds, rippled violently into deep purples and bruised blacks. A low, distressed rumble escaped its throat. Fisa froze. That color meant fear. The handlers exchanged confused looks. It won't advance," one stammered, raising all 4 hands helplessly. Professor Vexhi bristled. "Explain." "We don't understand," another handler said. "It's never done this before." The beast shuffled backward, its colossal body trembling. Students gasped as the enormous creature pressed itself against the crystalline wall, eyes darting wildly across the room as if searching for a predator only it could sense. "What is the meaning of this?" Vexhi hissed. His compound eyes burned with suspicion. Before the handlers could respond, the examination doors slammed open. James stumbled in. His uniform was wrinkled, his brown hair messy, and in his hand was a steaming cup of that foul-smelling liquid Earthlings insisted on calling coffee. "Sorry I'm late," he said cheerfully, jogging toward his seat beside Fisa. "Synthesizer on the fritz again, had to brew this by hand." The words fell into silence. Every eye in the chamber was fixed on him. The beast wailed, a sound like metal tearing under pressure, and pressed harder into the far wall. Its 6 dinner plate eyes locked onto the human, and its scales shifted faster, spiraling through patterns of panic and confusion. James froze halfway to his desk. He muttered, "is something wrong?" Professor Vexhi's compound gaze bore into him. "Mr. James," he said slowly, "perhaps you can explain why our security measure refuses to function in your presence." James blinked. "What, me? I didn't do anything. Maybe it doesn't like caffeine." Fisa whispered urgently, James, it's afraid of you." The handlers rushed forward, pressing scanners against the beast's scales. One stared at the readout, mandibles gaping. "Professor," he stammered, "it's detecting something unprecedented. A mind with no deception, none at all, total honesty, no shields, no hidden motives, nothing." Silence. The beast curled in on itself, as if shielding its eyes from the impossible. Professor Vexhai leaned forward, clicking his mandibles in disbelief. "Impossible. No species has ever." James scratched the back of his neck, uncomfortable. My grandmother always said I was a terrible liar. Guess she wasn't wrong." The hall erupted in whispers. "An honest mind. No guile, that's unnatural. How can a diplomat function without cunning?" The professor silenced them with a wave, his eyes fixed on James like a predator studying prey, or perhaps a discovery. "Mr. James," he said, voice trembling with restrained fascination, "do you understand what this means?" James sipped his coffee, wincing at the taste. "Not really, I just don't like lying, too much work." The handlers stepped back, terrified to go near him. The beast moaned, its scales flickering with the psychic equivalent of a panic attack. And Fisa, who had once thought of James as careless, even laughable, suddenly realized that in this hall of 12 species, it was the human who had become the most dangerous of them all. Because he carried a mind the galaxy wasn't prepared for. The professor's mandibles parted in a chilling smile. "Students, your examination begins now, but make no mistake, what we have uncovered today will reshape everything you think you know about diplomacy." The beast wailed again, shaking the crystal walls. And as James finally sat down, coffee in hand, the Mindreader curled into the corner like a child hiding from a nightmare, terrified not of lies, but of the first mind it had ever met that contained only truth. The hall was still buzzing long after the Mindreader beast had been escorted out. Students whispered across rows, antennae twitching, tails flicking, feathers rustling. Fisa sat stiffly, her gaze flicking between the empty space where the beast had been and the human now calmly sipping his steaming drink. James leaned back in his chair, looking more relaxed than anyone else in the room. His uniform was wrinkled, his boots scuffed, and his hair had the stubborn quality of someone who had wrestled with it in front of a mirror and lost. Fisa wanted to grab him by the shoulders and shake him. Didn't he understand what had just happened? The professor clicked his mandibles for silence. "The examination will proceed," he said, but his compound eyes never left James. His voice, normally sharp, now carried a cautious reverence. "Though our security measure is inoperable, we have already witnessed something far more valuable." He turned slowly, addressing the hall. "Students, you have just observed a phenomenon without precedent in our records, a mind without guile, a mind transparent as glass, and it belongs to a human." Dozens of eyes, compound and simple, turned toward James. He frowned into his cup. "What? Don't look at me like that, I'm not special." The professor ignored him. For centuries, the Corps has relied on technology and psychic enforcement to verify the honesty of negotiations. But what if? He leaned forward, mandibles gleaming in the refracted light. What if there existed a species for which deception is not natural, a species that cannot maintain lies no matter the stakes? His words struck like sparks in dry tinder. Gasps, murmurs, one scaled student hissed. Another feathered one ruffled its wings uneasily. Fisa gripped the edge of her desk. She felt something shifting beneath the surface, like tectonic plates grinding against one another. James, for all his flaws, was about to become the center of attention in ways neither of them could control. "Professor," she found herself saying, her voice steadier than she felt, "you cannot assume this of all humans. One case is not data." Vexhai's compound eyes turned on her, unblinking. Perhaps. Yet the creature's terror was unmistakable. It saw something it had never seen before, that cannot be dismissed. James raised a hand, as though volunteering in a classroom back on Earth. "Look, I think you're blowing this out of proportion. My grandmother always said lying was like juggling knives. You might get away with it for a while, but sooner or later you cut yourself. So yeah, I don't lie, it's easier. That's all." "That's all," Fisa whispered, incredulous. The professor's mandibles clacked, a sound like steel on stone. "Mr. James, you do not grasp the significance. In diplomacy, the greatest weapon is trust, and you are a living embodiment of it." James's brow furrowed. "That doesn't sound like a compliment." "It is more than that," the professor replied coldly. It is destiny. The examination itself went forward, but it was meaningless. None of the students could focus. Their test slates blurred, their thoughts clouded. All anyone could think of was the human sitting casually in their midst, sipping his bitter drink, oblivious to the storm brewing around him. Fisa forced herself to write, though her answers felt mechanical. She stole glances at James, noting how unbothered he appeared. Yet she could also see something else, a tightness in his jaw, the faint twitch of his fingers. He wasn't as relaxed as he pretended. When the test ended, the professor dismissed the class with unusual haste. "Return to your quarters. Results will be posted tomorrow. Mr. James, stay behind." The words dropped like lead. Students filed out, whispering furiously. Fisa hesitated. She wanted to stay to protect James from whatever was coming, but the professor's stare drove her forward. Reluctantly, she left, glancing back one last time. James gave her a little shrug, as if to say, "Don't worry." But she worried anyway. When the doors closed, the hall fell silent. The professor stalked across the crystalline floor, circling James like a predator. "You disrupt more than you realize," Vexhai said softly. James spread his hands. "I told you I'm not trying to, I just can't lie, not well anyway." "Not well." James scratched his neck. "Okay, not at all." The professor's mandibles clicked in thought. "Do you understand the value of that in a galaxy riddled with deceit? Alliances fracture over mistrust. Treaties collapse under hidden motives, but a negotiator who cannot lie, such a thing could command worlds." James frowned. "Sounds like a great way to get manipulated." Vexhai froze, tilting his head. "Explain." "Well, if everyone knows I can't lie, then everything I say becomes a weapon. People could twist my words, use them against me, force me to reveal things I shouldn't." The professor's eyes glittered. "You are more perceptive than you appear, human." James grimaced, not sure if that's a compliment either. Outside, Fisa lingered in the shadow of a crystal pillar. She couldn't hear much, only the faint echoes of voices through the sealed door. But her instincts told her this was dangerous. James was many things, but a manipulator he was not. He wouldn't see the trap closing until it was too late. And the professor, he wasn't studying James. He was already claiming him. That evening, word spread across the academy like wildfire. Humans were different. Humans couldn't lie. Humans were trustworthy. The rumor grew in every telling. By the time the artificial suns dimmed to twilight, stories had already reached beyond the academy walls. Some claimed humans were immune to telepathy. Others whispered they were a hidden weapon bred for diplomacy. Fisa sat in the mess hall, watching James eat with his usual absent-minded cheer. He had no idea that every eye in the room was on him. "James," she hissed, sliding into the seat across from him, "do you know what's happening?" He looked up, chewing. "Yeah, the food synth is broken again. This stew tastes like motor oil." "Not that," she snapped. "The rumors, the professors, they're not going to let this go." James shrugged. "Let them talk, I don't care." "You should care," her mandibles clicked sharply. "They'll use you, they'll tear you apart trying to understand why you are what you are." For once his smile faded, he set down his spoon. "You think I don't know that?" Fisa blinked. His tone was heavier than usual, stripped of the casual ease he wore like armor. "Where I come from," James said quietly, "people have been trying to use us for as long as I can remember. Politics, companies, even families. You tell the truth, they find a way to twist it. But I'm still here, still me." Fisa stared. She realized then that his honesty wasn't naivety. It was defiance, a refusal to bend. And for the first time, she wondered if maybe that was what scared the beast. That night in the deepest vaults of the academy, Professor Vexhai met with a delegation cloaked in shadow. Their faces were hidden, but their voices were sharp. "You're certain?" one hissed. "Yes," Vexhai replied. "The beast confirmed it. The human's mind is transparent, no deception, none." "Then he must be controlled." "Or destroyed," another voice added. "Such a thing cannot be allowed to roam free. Imagine what it would do to the balance of power." The professor's mandibles twitched. "I propose a compromise. The Corps will claim him. We will train him, shape him. He will be ours." "And if he resists?" Vexhai's compound eyes glittered in the dark. "Then we will teach him why resistance is futile." Back in his quarters, James stretched out on his bunk, coffee mug on the table beside him. He stared at the ceiling, feeling the weight of stares that never seemed to leave him now. Terrible liar, he muttered to himself. Yeah, Grandma, you were right. He closed his eyes and did not hear the faint scrape of claws against crystal outside his door. The corridors of the Zapperian Academy were quiet at night, their crystalline walls dimmed to a soft glow like veins of starlight running through stone. Students slept in their quarters, their dreams watched over by security drones that drifted silently like metallic moths. But around James's room, the shadows thickened. 3 figures crept forward, their bodies wrapped in adaptive cloaks that bent light and muffled sound. They moved with practiced precision, claws and boots finding purchase on the polished floor without a whisper. The first, a scaled Traxian mercenary, tapped a device against the lock. The crystalline door dissolved open soundlessly. Inside, James lay sprawled on his bunk, one arm hanging over the edge, breathing slow and steady. The mercenary gestured, they slipped in. Fisa couldn't sleep. She paced her small room, antennae twitching, skin prickling with unease. Something was wrong, she could feel it. Since childhood, her people had relied on instinct, a survival gift honed on the predator-infested plains of Irian. And right now, every nerve screamed danger. Her thoughts snapped to James, of course. Without hesitation, she bolted into the hall. The intruders surrounded James's bunk. One extended a needle-tipped injector filled with a viscous amber liquid. Sedative, it whispered in guttural tones. Quick, he must not resist. The needle hovered inches above his neck. Stop! The shout cut through the silence like a blade. Fisa stood in the doorway, chest heaving, eyes blazing. The mercenaries whirled, their cloaks flickering. The injector hissed as it scraped James's skin just shallow enough to wake him. His eyes snapped open. Oh, what the... He jerked upright, spilling the mug of stale coffee from his bedside table. The intruder lunged. Instinct overrode thought. James grabbed the nearest object, his metal mug, and swung it with every ounce of adrenaline surging through him. The mug connected with a skull, a sharp crack echoed. The mercenary staggered, dazed. James, run, Fisa cried. The room exploded into chaos. One mercenary fired a stun charge, the blue bolt crackling past James's ear and scorching the wall. He ducked, rolling across the floor. Who are these guys? James shouted. Not Academy, Fisa hissed, leaping forward. With her slender frame, she shouldn't have stood a chance, but she moved fast, snatching the injector and driving it into the mercenary's leg. The creature shrieked and collapsed, muscles seizing. Another swung at James with a bladed gauntlet. James grabbed the bunk frame, yanking it sideways. The heavy slab of crystal and metal toppled over, crashing into the attacker's knees with a sickening crunch. Humans and improvisation, Fisa muttered, astonished even in the middle of battle. The last mercenary roared, claws flashing. Fisa dragged James toward the door. Move. They sprinted into the corridor. Behind them, the mercenary slammed a fist against the wall, triggering alarms. The crystalline veins lit crimson. Students poured from their rooms, panicked. Security drones swarmed, confused by conflicting signals. James and Fisa shoved through the crowd, alarms blaring. They're after me, James panted. Yes, Fisa snapped. Because you terrified a Mindreader beast, because you're something no one understands, and because Professor Vexhai is already scheming to own you. James skidded to a halt. Wait, you knew. I suspected, she admitted, her mandibles clicked with frustration. But I didn't think they'd move this fast. Shouts echoed behind them. The mercenaries were pursuing, cutting through the crowd like wolves through a herd. Left, Fisa barked. They darted into a side corridor, narrow and dim. Their footsteps rang against crystal. James's heart thundered. He'd been in scrapes before, bar fights, bad neighborhoods, training accidents, but never hunted like this. We need a plan, he gasped. Your people always improvise, Fisa said grimly. Now would be a good time. They burst into the Academy's central atrium, a cavernous space with a ceiling lost in starlight. Glimmering walkways arched high above a pool that reflected the false moons overhead. Statues of great diplomats lined the walls, alien figures frozen in eternal negotiation. The space was empty, too empty. Fisa stopped short, her antennae twitched. It's a trap. Figures stepped from the shadows, not just the mercenaries, but cloaked officials. Their insignia gleamed faintly, the seal of the Corps itself. James's stomach dropped. Oh, hell. Professor Vexai emerged from the group, mandibles spread in what passed for a smile. "Ah, Mr. James, Miss Fisa, I was wondering how long it would take for instinct to drive you here." Fisa's skin prickled. "Professor, why?" "Because the galaxy is not ready for what your friend represents," Vexai replied. His compound eyes glinted like shards of obsidian. "Honesty unshakable, truth incorruptible. It destabilizes everything. If we do not harness him, we must silence him." James squared his shoulders. Fear trembled in his chest, but anger steadied him. "I'm not your tool." Vexai's mandibles clicked. "Then you are a liability." The mercenaries raised their weapons. Fisa stepped in front of James without hesitation, arms outstretched. "If you harm him, you'll have to kill me too." James blinked. Fisa." "Shut up," she snapped. The professor's eyes narrowed. "So be it." He raised one claw, and the ceiling above them shattered. Light and dust rained down as something massive crashed through the crystalline roof. The ground trembled. Students screamed. When the haze cleared, the atrium was no longer empty. The Mindreader beast crouched in the rubble, its 6 colossal eyes blazing. Its scales pulsed with jagged patterns of terror and fury. Tentacles writhed, tasting the psychic atmosphere. It had come back, and it was staring straight at James. The Mindreader beast's 6 eyes scanned James with a precision no human or alien had ever endured. Thoughts, emotions, memories, they poured outward in a flood the creature could sense, like a river breaking through a dam. And yet it faltered. It had never encountered a mind like this, not fractured, not chaotic, not boundless. Human thought was supposed to be linear, predictable, manageable. A Mindreader could navigate alien networks, anticipate the next move of a counselor, foresee the betrayal of a general. Humans, they should be easier. But James was not easy. James and Fisa froze as the Mindreader shifted, each movement creating shockwaves that rippled across the atrium. Dust and shattered crystals swirled in an otherworldly ballet. The beast's tentacles probed the air like psychic antennae, and in the minds of everyone present there was a single terrifying sensation: dread and awe. James swallowed hard, his thoughts raced. How is it not attacking? "Fisa," he whispered, it's not mad, it's scared." Fisa's antennae twitched. "Not scared, confused. Something about your mind, it doesn't match any pattern it has ever known. You are unpredictable." Vexai's compound eyes widened, his mandibles clicking furiously. "Impossible. The Mindreader cannot fear. Its purpose, its very essence, is control. It predicts, it manages, it enforces. Fear is." "It doesn't know what to do with you," Fisa said sharply. James stepped forward, heart hammering. The instinct to run warred with an inexplicable curiosity. "If it's afraid of me, maybe I can reach it." "Wait," Fisa hissed, grabbing his arm. "Don't provoke it. This isn't like your human bar fights. One wrong move and it will." The tentacle nearest James curled, brushing a fingertip against the air just inches from his forehead. A tremor ran through him, like walking on a tightrope made of ice. He felt memories he had never shared, instincts he didn't know existed, flicker across his consciousness. And in that moment, James understood. The Mindreader wasn't just observing, it was communicating. Not with words, not with sound, but with raw, unfiltered thought. A cascade of images filled his mind. Wars fought across stars, planets burned, creatures enslaved, civilizations toppled. And then a single, stark vision. James standing alone, staring at the beast, unflinching, defying logic, defying expectation. The Mindreader had glimpsed a human's courage, and something it could not process. Vexai barked orders, but the Mindreader reacted first. One tentacle lashed, sending a shockwave through the atrium. Drones shattered, students screamed, and mercenaries were thrown across the room like rag dolls. Fisa dove in front of James, narrowly catching him as he tripped over the debris. "Run!" she shouted. James shook his head. "No, I think it's listening." Fisa gaped. "Listening? It reads minds. It's not. You can't negotiate with a Mindreader." James held up his hands. "Maybe not negotiate, but maybe it's trying to understand." The tentacles paused midair. The 6 eyes locked on him. And for the first time in centuries of galactic domination, the Mindreader recoiled. Vexai's voice quavered. "This is unprecedented. It should attack, it should." But it didn't. It hesitated. James took a slow, steadying breath. "Listen, I'm not your enemy, I don't want to hurt you. I can't, because I see you and I know you're afraid too. For the first time, the mind reader's thoughts trembled with something alien even to itself: vulnerability. A low, rumbling sound emerged, not a growl, not a roar, but almost a sigh. A wave of psychic energy washed over the room, not violent, not threatening, but profound. Every mind present, human and alien, felt it. The mind reader feared humanity, not for what humans could do, but for what humans represented. The unpredictable, the courageous, the compassionate. Vexai stumbled backward. No, that's impossible. Fear it cannot. James took a step forward. Yes, fear, and maybe that's a start. Fisa's skin rippled with unease and awe. James, don't, you can't. But James ignored her. He reached out, hand trembling, and touched one of the mind reader's tentacles. There was no pain, no attack, only warmth like the echo of a heartbeat through psychic channels. The tentacle retracted slowly, coiling back toward the creature's massive body. Its eyes flickered with emotion James could not name. It was learning, and perhaps, for the first time, it understood. Then from the shattered ceiling, a new threat emerged. A swarm of Vexai's elite guards descended in levitating pods, armed with plasma disruptors. The mind reader turned, instinct kicking in, protective and defensive, but it was caught off guard by the sheer numbers. James grabbed Fisa's arm. We need to move now. The mind reader's gaze met his one last time. James felt a pulse of thought, trust, but fight. With no time to hesitate, they dashed toward the lower atrium. Pods fired, arcs of energy slicing the air. Fisa rolled, sweeping James behind a shattered statue. James, Fisa yelled, this isn't your fight anymore. James shook his head. It's my mind they fear, and maybe, just maybe, I can show them what humanity really is. The pods converged, and the mind reader struck. Tentacles whipped through the air, dismantling the first few pods with shocking precision. James ducked as a piece of a pod splintered inches above his head. And then something impossible happened. The mind reader's thoughts surged directly into the intruders' minds, visions of their own fears, their failures, their lives collapsing in psychic screams. Screeches of panic erupted as the elite guards clawed at their own helmets, unable to comprehend what was happening. Vexai's compound eyes widened in terror. No, you cannot. But it was too late. The mind reader's power, amplified by its confusion and fear, overwhelmed the technology. Pods crashed, alarms blared, and the atrium descended into chaos. Amid the destruction, James and Fisa ran, hearts pounding, minds racing. Outside the atrium, the doors slammed shut. The hallways beyond were clear, for now. James panted, "Did we do it?" Fisa glanced back. The mind reader stood at the atrium center, massive and trembling, its 6 eyes locked on him. Fear, respect, curiosity, all tangled into a single, incomprehensible emotion. James swallowed. I think we made it for now. Fisa touched his shoulder, antennae drooping. For now isn't enough. They'll regroup. Vexai will not let this go, and the mind reader, it's learning faster than anyone anticipated. James looked at the colossal creature, then back at the hallways. Then we need a plan, and maybe the galaxy isn't ready for what comes next. The corridors of Vexai's compound were silent, but the silence was heavy, thick with anticipation. Broken lights flickered overhead, casting fractured shadows across walls lined with alien glyphs. James and Fisa moved carefully, every step measured, every sound a potential signal to the enemy. Do you think it's really scared? Fisa whispered, her voice trembling despite her composed appearance. Her skin shifted subtly, a pale glow along her ridges showing her anxiety. James adjusted the strap of his makeshift satchel. Not scared of me, scared of what humans represent. Courage, unpredictability, the ability to defy expectation. The mind reader, never seen anything like that. Fisa exhaled, her mandibles clicking softly. Then what do we do? Vexai is still out there, he won't stop. James shook his head. We find allies. We use the fear it has of humanity. If it trusts me enough, maybe it can help, but we have to be careful. One mistake and everything goes up in flames. Meanwhile, deep within the command center, Vexai's compound eyes glimmered with fury. Screens flickered, showing the atrium's destruction and the chaos that had erupted at the hands of the mind reader. How could a human? Vexai hissed, claws tapping rhythmically against the console. It should have been easy. The Mindreader controls thought. Minds cannot defy it. His second-in-command, a sleek alien with 4 elongated limbs named Kyril, bowed slightly. Perhaps it is not just a human, Vexai. Perhaps it is something more. Vexai turned sharply. Something more? It is human, Kyril, flawed, unpredictable, reckless, but still flesh and thought. Nothing can rival a Mindreader. Kyril's tone was calm, eerily so. Perhaps not, sir, but the Mindreader, it hesitated, and hesitation can be exploited. Vexai's compound eyes narrowed. Exploited, explain. Kyril leaned forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. The human's courage, his mind, has created something the Mindreader cannot fully comprehend. Fear, yes, but also trust. If we can manipulate that trust, turn it into chaos, then the Mindreader will destroy itself before it can destroy us. Vexai's mandibles twitched. Then we prepare. Assemble the strike squads, equip the pods, no mistakes this time. The human will not survive, nor will its strange allies. Outside, James and Fisa crouched behind a massive ventilation shaft, peering into the compound's lower levels. The smell of scorched metal and burnt circuitry still lingered. We can't go back, James murmured. Vexai will be expecting us. Fisa nodded. But forward is a labyrinth of guards, drones, and surveillance systems. It's practically a fortress. James looked at the glowing map he had scavenged from the atrium. The Mindreader's psychic pulse had disrupted the sensors temporarily, but the compound would recalibrate soon. We need a distraction, he said. Something only humans could do, something unpredictable. Fisa arched an eyebrow. You mean chaos? James grinned despite the tension. Exactly, and humans are very good at that. Fisa tilted her head, antennae flicking. James, sometimes I wonder if your definition of very good gets us killed more than it saves us. James laughed softly. Maybe, but it's the only way. He crouched lower, whispering, We get to the central conduit. We access the compound's energy core. If we overload it even for a few minutes, we can create a corridor to escape, or even strike back. Fisa's eyes widened. That's insane. The conduit feeds the entire lower complex. One misstep and the whole place collapses. James shrugged. Then we better not misstep. As they moved, the hum of the compound systems began to pulse stronger. James felt it resonate in his chest, an alien heartbeat, mechanical and alive. They slipped past patrols, avoiding security drones, and hid in maintenance tunnels thick with pipes and wiring. It was there that Fisa paused, her glow dimming. James, look. Through a grated panel, they could see Vexai's elite strike squads moving in tight formation. Their pods floated silently, weapons bristling, scanning for the human who had defied logic itself. James clenched his fists. They're coming for us and for the Mindreader. Fisa's voice dropped. Do you think it can hold them off? James hesitated. I don't know, but it's learning faster than anyone expects. If it survives, maybe, just maybe, it will help us turn the tide. Suddenly, alarms blared, a high-pitched alien screech that echoed down the tunnels. James froze. Trap, Fisa hissed. The floor beneath them vibrated as energy pods descended from hidden hatches. Strike squads emerged from shadows, blocking every escape route. James gritted his teeth. So much for subtlety. Fisa's glow flared. James now. James lunged, grabbing a maintenance panel. Sparks flew as he yanked wires, creating a short circuit. The lights flickered and died. The pods hesitated, their systems disrupted by the human improvisation. Go, James shouted. They sprinted down a narrow service passage, but Vexai's soldiers were relentless. Plasma arcs shot past, carving the walls. Fisa leaped, spinning in midair, knocking 2 pods off course. James slid beneath a falling beam, scraping his shoulder but moving faster than he thought possible. At the end of the corridor, they reached a junction with a massive shaft leading downward. A service elevator too small for pods but perfect for humans. James grinned, just our size. They jumped in. The shaft descended, rattling violently. The sounds of pursuit echoed above, shouts, alarms, and the unmistakable hum of Vexai's elite weapons. Think it's following us? Fisa asked, clutching her arm across her chest. James shook his head. Not following, preparing. The Mindreader isn't a predator, it calculates, and it's watching. A pulse throbbed in the walls around them, vibrating the metal floor. James froze. The Mindreader, it's trying to reach us. Fisa's eyes widened. James, it's communicating with you. James clenched his jaw. Then we better listen. In the atrium above, the Mindreader pulsed with psychic energy, tentacles lashing at the empty air. Its eyes glimmered, focused entirely on James and Fisa's path. For the first time, it acted not out of instinct or duty, but choice, guided by trust, fear, and curiosity. Vexai's pods swarmed the atrium, now aware of the Mindreader's defiance. It lashed outward, ripping through weapons and armor, but it was still learning, still hesitant. Each strike was calculated, powerful, but cautious. Vexai's mandibles snapped in anger. It cannot defy me. But it did. And the Mindreader's hesitation, its terror and awe of humanity, began to shift the battlefield. It no longer acted as a tool of control. It was learning, changing, and choosing sides in a way no one expected. The elevator shaft jolted violently, sparks flew. James and Fisa clung to the walls. "Hold on," James yelled. The shaft's panel lit up with a sudden red glow. Energy surged. Vexai's systems were attempting an override. The elevator could collapse at any moment. Fisa's voice trembled. "James, if this fails..." James shook his head. "It won't, it can't fail, not yet. We're humans, and humans we find a way." The shaft dropped another few meters, faster now. James could hear the whirring of the pods above, getting closer, relentless. Then, in a flash of light and a tremor that shook the entire shaft, the world outside the metal walls seemed to split. James caught a glimpse through a side panel. The atrium above was a storm of chaos. The Mindreader, Vexai's pods, and a growing psychic pulse that seemed to warp reality itself. Fisa gasped, "James, it's doing something incredible." James swallowed hard, gripping the edges of the shaft. "Then we better be ready for what comes next, because whatever that is, it's going to change everything." The service elevator shuddered violently, sparks flying as metal groaned under the strain. James and Fisa clung to the walls, their muscles burning from the effort of staying upright. Outside, the hum of pursuit was deafening. Vexai's elite pods had recovered from the disruption, their weapons cutting through the shadows like deadly lightning. James clenched his teeth, feeling the vibration of the Mindreader's psychic pulse even through the metal walls. It was more than a signal. It was alive, aware, calculating. For the first time, James realized the Mindreader was not just a tool of destruction. It was choosing. "Fisa," James said, his voice tight with urgency, "it's not attacking. It's hesitating. It's waiting for us to make the next move." Fisa's glow pulsed softly, her mandibles clicking nervously. "Do you think it trusts us?" James shook his head. "Not exactly trust, something else. Curiosity, fear, respect. It sees what humans can do and it doesn't like it." Fisa glanced at him. "That's reassuring." James smirked despite the chaos. "If by reassuring you mean terrifying, yes." Above them, the Mindreader's psychic tendrils wriggled through the atrium like silver lightning. Vexai's strike squads advanced cautiously, each movement calculated to avoid provoking the creature, yet fully aware that hesitation might cost them everything. The Mindreader's eyes, luminescent and unblinking, focused on the elevator shaft. Its attention was not on Vexai's forces, nor on the weapons aimed at it. It was on James and Fisa. And it waited. The elevator jerked to a sudden halt, throwing James forward into Fisa. Pain shot through his shoulder, but he ignored it. He pressed his hands against the walls, trying to steady the trembling platform. "Hold steady," he gritted through clenched teeth. "Whatever comes next, we need to be ready." Fisa nodded, her glow brightening. "James, if it helps us now, can we survive what's coming?" James paused. His gaze met hers, and for a fleeting second he let himself imagine a future beyond this chaos. "We survive because humans always survive. We find a way, even when it seems impossible, even when it seems hopeless." Fisa's antennae twitched, even then. James's grin was faint but determined, especially then. The service shaft suddenly shook again, violently, as if the entire compound had shifted. A blinding light erupted from above, the Mindreader's psychic pulse breaking through the structural barriers, interacting with the conduits with the energy systems. Sparks danced across the walls, metal groaning under the strain. James shielded his eyes, heart pounding. "It's doing something, but what?" Fisa's glow flared bright, illuminating the cramped space. "It's opening a path, but there's a catch. Look at the readings. If we take this path, the rest of the shaft could collapse." James's stomach tightened. Then it's a gamble, but what choice do we have? Fisa hesitated. We take it or we die here. James's jaw set. Then we move. They stepped into the descending light, and the shaft's walls seemed to dissolve into a blur of energy. Sparks leapt around them as the Mindreader's pulse guided the elevator, not down, but through the walls themselves. Reality warped subtly, bending to the creature's psychic influence. James's breath caught. It's breaking the rules. This isn't physics, it's thought made real. Fisa's eyes widened. It's insane, but it's working. Meanwhile, in the atrium, Vexai's eyes flared with fury. Impossible. It cannot manipulate matter, only minds. Chiril's calm voice cut through the chaos. Sir, it is not just manipulating minds. It is reacting to one mind, the humans. Vexai's mandibles snapped. No, that cannot be. Humans cannot. But the evidence was clear. The Mindreader's pulse was bending reality in response to James's presence, his courage, his ingenuity. For the first time, Vexai's carefully constructed control began to falter. James and Fisa reached the end of the warped shaft, stepping into a massive, dimly lit chamber that seemed impossibly vast. Pipes and conduits twisted in impossible angles, almost organic in appearance. The Mindreader hovered above, tendrils reaching down, waiting. James swallowed hard. It's showing us the way. Fisa's voice trembled. James, do you trust it? He hesitated, looking at the creature that had terrified entire species, that had manipulated countless minds with ease. And yet, here it was, hesitant, uncertain, following the strange logic of a human mind. I have to, James said finally. It's the only way. He stepped forward, hand outstretched. The Mindreader's tendrils hovered inches away. For a tense moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Then slowly one tendril touched his arm. A shiver ran through him, not painful but electric. It was a connection, a bridge of thought. Fisa's glow pulsed. James, it's linking to you. James nodded, heart hammering. Then we moved together. As they advanced through the chamber, reality bending around them, alarms echoed from deeper within the compound. Vexai's forces had regrouped, and this time they were coming with everything they had. Pods, drones, strike teams, no hesitation, no mercy. James felt the Mindreader's fear, but also something else. Anticipation, like a predator unsure whether to attack or flee. Get ready, James whispered. They're going to try to stop us. Fisa's mandibles clicked. James, this could be the end. James gave her a brief smile. Then we make it a beginning. They stepped into the next corridor, reality warping under the Mindreader's influence. Sparks danced in the air, shadows twisted unnaturally, and the hum of energy filled every corner. Then from the darkness ahead, a figure emerged, Vexai himself, larger, more terrifying than ever, his mandibles clicking in anger. You cannot escape, he roared. The human cannot bend the Mindreader to its will. James stood tall, shoulder-scarred, hands gripping the edges of his satchel. Watch me. Vexai's claws shot forward, energy arcs following, slicing through the air. But the Mindreader surged, shielding James and Fisa in a swirling barrier of psychic energy. Reality rippled as the creature unleashed a pulse, sending Vexai staggering backward. For the first time, Vexai's eyes widened with fear. The chamber quaked, metal twisting unnaturally under the Mindreader's psychic pulse. James felt it in his bones, a vibration not of sound, but of possibility. Every fiber of the alien structure seemed alive, responding to the connection between his mind and the creature. Vexai's clawed hands lashed through the barrier, sparks dancing off the protective field. You cannot command the Mindreader, he bellowed. It is not yours to control. James swallowed hard, chest burning. He was tired, wounded, and every instinct screamed to retreat. But the human stubbornness that had kept him alive this long refused to yield. It's not about control, James shouted. It's about understanding. You've never seen a species adapt the impossible before, Vexai. That's why you fear us. Vexai froze, his multifaceted eyes narrowing. Fear? You dare claim I fear humans? James stepped closer, ignoring the sizzling energy arcs. Yes, you fear that we will not give up, that we can take what terrifies even you and turn it into hope, into life. The Mindreader pulsed in resonance with James's words, its tendrils rippling like silver water. Fisa hovered close, glowing brighter than ever, sensing the shift. For the first time, Vexai realized that the Mindreader's allegiance had never been his to command. It had been waiting, observing, judging. And now it had chosen. With a sudden surge, the Mindreader extended all its psychic tendrils outward. Energy cascaded across the chamber like a living storm, twisting and bending reality. Vexai's strike pods were lifted off the ground, spinning helplessly, then hurled into the far wall. Metal screamed and shattered, and for a moment all was silent except for the hum of raw power. James and Fisa stood side by side, shielding themselves instinctively, but the Mindreader formed a protective cocoon around them, radiating calm and power simultaneously. James exhaled. "It's incredible, I can't believe we're still standing." Fisa's glow dimmed slightly, relief washing over her. "We are standing because it trusts us." Vexai scrambled, rage boiling into desperation. "This is not over, you will regret." Before he could finish, the Mindreader's pulse reached him, probing deep into his thoughts, twisting and exposing every doubt, every fear. Vexai shrieked, a sound that no human or alien had ever made before, as his own mind reflected back his terror. And in that moment, James realized the truth. The Mindreader did not fear James or Fisa. It feared what humans represented, indomitable will, adaptability, and courage unbound by arrogance or tradition. And now it respected it. Vexai's form slumped, mandibles clicking in defeat. "Impossible," he whispered, the weight of comprehension settling over him. James stepped forward cautiously. "It's not impossible, Vexai. You just never understood humans. We survive, we create, we care, even when it seems hopeless." Fisa's antennae twitched, a small hum of approval. "And we work together. Humans never act alone. That is the true strength." The Mindreader pulsed one final time, a blinding surge that rippled across the chamber. When the light faded, Vexai was gone, unconscious but alive, contained by the Mindreader itself. James and Fisa were unharmed, the chamber restored, yet still humming faintly with residual energy. Outside the compound, the alien world had changed. The skies shimmered with colors unfamiliar to any human eye, clouds reflecting the psychic resonance of the Mindreader. Plants, rocks, even the air seemed subtly altered, as if the environment itself had acknowledged the victory of humanity's ingenuity. James stepped onto the platform leading outside, chest heaving, eyes scanning the horizon. "Fisa, we did it. The Mindreader, it actually helped us." Fisa's glow softened to a gentle pulse. "It chose humanity, James. That alone changes everything." James looked at her, then at the world before them. It was harsh, alien, yet beautiful in ways humans could never imagine. "Do you think they'll tell the others, the galaxy, what happened here?" Fisa's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "Some truths cannot be hidden. Humans have a way of leaving impressions." James smiled faintly, the weight of exhaustion and relief blending into a fragile joy. "Then let's make sure this one counts." The Mindreader hovered beside them, its massive form serene, almost contemplative. Its psychic tendrils gently touched James's shoulder. No words passed between them, none were needed. The connection spoke volumes, respect, understanding, and a recognition that humanity's spirit was something the galaxy had never seen before. James felt a surge of emotion. He thought of the humans who had come before him, who had faced impossible odds and survived. He thought of Fisa, who had trusted him when others doubted. And he thought of the countless species across the stars who might one day witness the power of humans united by compassion, ingenuity, and courage. "You don't have to go back," James said softly to the Mindreader. "You can stay or go, but know this, we'll keep trying always and will never give up." The Mindreader's tendrils pulsed in a slow, rhythmic pattern, a silent acknowledgement. And then with a ripple through space and thought, it vanished, not destroyed, not defeated, but free. James exhaled, feeling the weight of what had just occurred settle around him. Fisa nudged his arm gently. "You're smiling, after all that chaos." James laughed, a low, breathless sound. "It's hard not to. We changed the rules today, not with weapons, not with fear, but with us." Fisa's glow brightened, warm and steady. "That is the essence of humanity, James. The galaxy would do well to remember it." Days later, as they traveled back to the alien city to report what had transpired, news spread rapidly. Stories of the human who had not only survived the Mindreader's judgment, but had earned its respect became legend. Aliens whispered in awe, a mixture of fear and admiration rippling across the sector. Vexai was confined, reflecting on the failure of his arrogance. Even he could not deny the lesson. Humans were unlike anything the galaxy had encountered. They were unpredictable, unyielding, and above all, undaunted by fear itself. James looked at the horizon again, the twin suns casting long shadows over the alien landscape. "The galaxy isn't ready for humanity," he said quietly. "But maybe, just maybe, it's ready to start learning." Fisa glanced at him, soft light bathing her face. "We taught the Mindreader, James, that's a start." James chuckled, the sound echoing against alien metal and stone. "Yeah, it's a start." And for the first time in his life, James allowed himself to imagine a future where humans weren't just surviving, they were changing everything. Somewhere in the far reaches of the stars, the Mindreader pulsed once more, silently observing, silently waiting. And James knew, no matter what challenges came next, the galaxy would never forget the day humanity made even a Mindreader fear their spirit. The stars above shimmered, alien and eternal, as if winking at a secret only humans could fully understand.